Hello and welcome to another edition of the Leader Campus Talks. And I'm talking with my first astronaut. I am so excited. Nicole Stott. And on your LinkedIn page, you've got the artistic astronaut, artistic, I'm even stumbling over the words,
That's okay.
astronaut earthling. I love the earthling at the last. So, Nicole, thank you so much for being here. I think it's fabulous. I am so honored and excited. I just I'm tingling all over. So you have worked for NASA for I think it's 28 years. It says on your
Yeah,
thing, 28 years. So obviously, I think that it has probably changed your life. So uh, you have stuff information on your list, but especially with leadership, are the things that you have learned about the fragility of the Earth through NASA that leaders ought to be very concerned about.
yeah, I definitely, and and the whole idea of it changing your life and all of that is there as well. And but to your question, definitely, because it does seem like there's been over time kind of a loss of that idea of the fragility of our planet. And I'd like to hope, though, that it wasn't a malicious loss of sight of it, and it
Mhm.
didn't start out that way, but maybe it was more, acts of like survival based on the information that was available at the time.
Mhm.
But now, I mean, today we have much better information, and it's information that's globally available. And I guess I'd argue that what we need to do now, how we need to change what we, as individuals, corporations, governments, do now is also about our survival. And
Mhm.
we're at a point where we need to collectively act on the information that's available to us to ensure our survival. And what's really important is that our planet, I think when we think about fragility, it's fragile because its fragility is defined by us. And from the standpoint of how it's set up to support our life on it. And the things we're doing that are damaging its life support system, if there's, it's kind of compare it to a spaceship. I mean, it has its life support system for us. And it's very different, I think, to how the planet itself can survive. And regardless of what we do to the planet, I really believe that our planet will survive just fine without us.
Yeah.
It survived a lot worse for a long, long time before we ever showed up. And so it seems pretty simple that it's kind of our own personal responsibility, perhaps selfish, that it's our interest to our own survival, that we all need to figure out how to take better care of Earth's life support system.
And so you've been to the station. You've done walks. I don't know how many other things. I never didn't write them down, but so many things in space. Even you were a commander of one of the space. Uh,
No, I didn't. I
oh,
didn't stick around long enough to do that, but that's okay.
well, you were the first to do the arm, though, the armature.
The first to fly the robotic arm to grab a free flying spaceship that was coming in to bring us some cargo. So that was really cool. And I can tell you, once we got done with that, as a team, up there working on this for the first time, there's things that just weight is lifted. Because here you have this other spaceship that's moving in really close to yours. You don't want anything to go on. And of course, we train for all of those things that can go wrong or that we know can go wrong. And when it comes off beautifully, you're always really, really pleased. And, of course, high fiving each other and the team on the ground. And yeah, it's really cool to see what the complex kinds of things we can do, when we work together.
So that's something that I think this campus would like to know is how do you approach and how can you tell leaders how to get teamwork together? I mean, you know,
Yeah, you use that's exactly the words, is that I mean, it is all about teamwork, whether you're a crew on a space mission or your undersea mission. I mean, your crew is your team. And kind of going back a little bit to the first question is, I think we're starting to see a shift towards this recognition, and of the actions that we need to take. And as astronauts, certainly we're trying to come together, in our community to share, both our personal and perhaps the international perspective that we had, but also, that shared spaceflight perspective of what we see of our planet. And I think we believe that there is, a power there to unify us all as Earthlings and to set us on a path that, has us working together as a team for our, common future here on planet Earth. But teamwork is it. It's about taking the best advantage of the strengths of everyone on your team, recognizing the diverse, strengths and backgrounds, just recognizing that provides you with your best opportunity for success. I always joke, how boring, first of all, it would be to be flying in space or doing anything with 5 more of yourself. You know what I mean? I mean, it would be real. The decision making might be easy, but I think your opportunity for success would really shrink. And, while there's always got to be, I guess, a designated leader of a team, everyone has to develop and understand their own leadership skills in order to be a highly functioning member of that team, of your crew. And part of that, I think, is understanding and acknowledging that, not only your personal strengths, but being willing to accept that you have weaknesses as well. And that other people on your team might just be the ones that do something better than you in some cases. And that's okay. And then ultimately, I think that the best leaders, at least the best leaders I've found and that I've followed and been part of a team with, are the ones that are even better followers. And yeah, I just think that's key, to be able to, recognize your weaknesses and acknowledging that somebody else always, in cases, will be able to do things better than you, and you'll have your strengths. But that following is a real skill. I mean, being able to do it respectfully and successfully is a real skill.
But what's interesting is, in space, and you've also been to the depths of the ocean, and so you've been to the heights of the International Space Station, to the depths of some of the lowest areas in the ocean. Teamwork has to be, because it depends on your life in most cases, right?
Absolutely. I mean, in those cases, I guess it's kind of looking at it at extremes, in extreme environments, and where, more than those places, do you need to understand the dynamics of the team that you're working with, and know that you'll be able to rely on each other. And I think that's, the best teams too, I think, are the ones where there's this mix of really interesting backgrounds that get brought together for the success of the mission. But they're people that you're going to have a good time with. I mean, extreme environments are usually really cool places. I mean, space, under the ocean, those are both very cool places that you're getting a perspective on our planet that's so different to anywhere else you can be. And there's loads of other places right here on Earth that can happen for you. But you want to enjoy it, while you're there.
Yeah.
But then you also want to know that when it does hit the fan, you're going to be, I mean, really seriously, that you're going to be able to rely on the skills and the strengths of each of your crewmates to, come out the other end successfully. And I love that I experienced that in space and underwater.
And you're in the International Space Station. Were you involved with people, international cultures?
Absolutely. The International Space Station program is built from, there's like 5 partner countries, or with 15 individual countries involved. And so we have the United States, Canada, Russia, Europe, and Japan. And at any given time, we have 6 crew members on the International Space Station that are made up of a mix of crew members from those different countries. And so we work together, train together, and that's not just as a crew living as one crew and working on the space station, but our ground teams down here on Earth are doing that same thing every day, working together. And I think it's really cool that, for as long as my son is 15 years old, and for as long as he has been alive, 2 years longer actually, for 17 years, we've had the International Space Station circling our planet 5 miles a second with crew members from all over the world living and working together peacefully, successfully living and working together up there. And that's a really wonderful testament to what we can do, not only from an engineering standpoint, building the most complex thing we've ever built before and doing it in space, but functioning as human beings together in that place and as our ground teams. And it's a really wonderful example for how we should be doing more things down here.
That was what I was thinking. Is there a way that you can think of that could bring that kind of camaraderie from space and from the ocean to people that are actually in safer places here on Earth?
I think it's starting to happen. I think more and more, and it's kind of, as individual astronauts, we are all trying to share the spaceflight experience in one way or another. I've discovered art to do that. Other people are more active speakers or getting into education or working at different companies or becoming representatives, for our government and things. And these are international colleagues around the world that we're starting to realize that we can come together collectively and share that experience and perhaps, make audiences that didn't know what's going on in space so peacefully and globally aware of it in a way that they can relate that to what we're doing down here on Earth. And I think it's starting to happen more and more. I don't think we're going to go back to space in different places. When we go back to the moon or onto Mars, we're not going to do that as one country anymore. And I think it's just going to continue to grow to more and more participation that way, which then drives the participation down here on Earth.
Which is interesting because it's always been, I've heard people say for years and years, it's going to be, business that unites the world. But it sounds to me like the best opportunities for joining the countries together is science.
Well, I think which drives really wonderful business, by the way.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
What, kind of drives that. And then, ultimately, as we go to space, there's going to be the business of doing it. It's what's going to be kind of the allure about it is how can we, off our planet as well, successfully be entrepreneurs, I guess, and bring that, like I believe the space program just does in general. Everything that we're doing off of our planet is about improving life here on Earth. Even if we're talking about going to Mars, it's in some way an improvement of life here on Earth. And that's a pretty cool thing. And I think space and science drive out opportunities for business and for global cooperation in a way that, other things might not.
You're the first artist to be in space as well. Speaking of all these different people that are doing different things, how does your art, how do you want people to receive your art in such a fashion?
Well, I mean, first of all, I'd like them to feel good, when they look at any of my artwork. But I also, I want them to understand the backstory a little bit, just all of these things we've just been talking about. My whole goal with my artwork, when I finally made that, what I would say, difficult decision to retire from NASA, was to engage people in a unique way in that perspective that came through my spaceflight experience. And I want more and more people to look up and appreciate the wonderful things that are happening every day in space, with our colleagues from all over the world, and that we're living and working there peacefully and successfully together every day as a global community with that ultimate goal of improving life here on Earth. In fact, it's funny, our space station motto is off the Earth for the Earth. And I think it just absolutely sums it up. Everything we're doing there, we're figuring out how to explore and live and work further off of our planet, but it's all with this goal of improving life here. And then I think I want my artwork to allow people to kind of flip it around, to help them maybe look through my eyes back towards Earth for a little bit of, uh, I don't know, experience the awe maybe of our home planet in a way that's more of a lesson in Earth and Earthling appreciation.
Wow. Uh, how did your colleagues react to your painting? I mean, because you're in zero gravity, does
It
the
was
paint
really fun. Yeah,
does
it was
paint
really fun.
droplets the paint droplets flow around or anything? I mean,
They do. You have to be, I wish, I didn't think that it was going to be that unique of a thing to do, to paint in space. And quite honestly, at the time I had no idea that somebody else hadn't painted in space before. It never crossed my mind that that couldn't possibly happen. How long have we been flying in space? And, at that point it was what, um, 10 years on the space station already. And, had somebody not painted up there. But and the way I even thought to do it was, a long story short, a friend of mine, a colleague of mine who was one of my crew support people, she just reminded me that I might actually have some spare time when I'm up there living, for months at a
hmm
time in space, and that I should consider that. What besides, being glued to that window, looking out, back at Earth, would I be doing in my spare time? And so I've always loved artsy crafty things. And I thought, well, I'll bring up a little watercolor kit and I'll paint, while I'm there. And, you talk about painting in space. Everybody asks me, they're like, well, watercolors, that's got to be even worse. It's floating all over the place. And, it's all about organization. And even down here in my studio, I have to be a little bit organized too, to not make a mess. But up there, everything does float. And so even the water, when you squirt the little ball of it out of your drink bag, is going to float if you don't, take an action with respect to it. But it was so neat to paint and there was some science to it too, which was kind of cool,
hmm
because in space, water does float as like this little ball, the sphere. And so surface tension is different and the properties of the water behave differently and all of that. And so I would squirt out this tiny little ball of water and take the brush and I didn't even have to almost get at this. Like the water was wanting to go to the brush. And so I'd touch the ball of water and then it would just get sucked up onto the brush. And then it looked almost like this ball of water floating around the end of the brush. And then I'd mush it around on the paints and it would suck it back onto the brush, and had to be a little bit more careful about how much pressure I put on the paper when I was painting. Otherwise the paper wanted to just suck it in all at once. So there were different things to worry about, but it was so much fun. And in hindsight, I'm really happy that I chose watercolors,
hmm
because acrylic paints would have been really messy. I would have had
hmm
to have like a brush for every color, and
hmm
because it would have been a real pain to clean up and all of that. But the watercolors worked out great. I'm really thankful to my crewmate, Bob Thirsk, who took what I believe is the one and only picture of me painting in space. I mean, honestly, I didn't think to videotape it. I didn't think to do any of that. And so I'm really, really thankful for that one picture. And I left the paint kit up there thinking, somebody else might want to paint while they're while they're there.
Fantastic.
I don't know if anybody. I've had people look for it, and nobody's found it yet. But my friend Drew is getting ready to fly, and he's gonna be on a mission to find that paint kit. Give me one of his tasks while he's up there. See if I can get it back.
What do you
But
think is the most important aspects that you took away from your 28 years in NASA?
wow, it's that's kind of the question. Like when somebody asks, well, what was your favorite thing about
Yeah,
flying
yeah.
in space? It's interesting because it's all, there are experiences in life, I think, that all kind of wrap up into one moment almost. They
hmm
seem like they're just this, they're almost too surreal to even kind of distinguish the favorite parts. But I think if I had to pick two things, I think the first one would be, what I've learned is really, you just got to be grateful.
Yeah.
Um, And this primarily has to do with, I think, with the people and the experience I shared with all these other people during my time with NASA. And that's everything from, my first job working at the Kennedy Space Center, in the hangar with the space shuttles, and the people that really felt like their job was the care and feeding of these spaceships, all the way to, flying in space. And I loved every job I had with NASA.
Yeah.
And I really do think it came down to there was this cool space program going around it, but it really came down to the people that loved what they were doing and that I was working with along the way. And it just really opened up my eyes that, we're being presented every day with opportunities and relationships with different people that just open up new and good things for us. I mean, I know I was blessed to do the things that I did in those 28 years with NASA, but it really came down to, the people that I experienced it with and the people that encouraged me along the way when I probably didn't have the confidence on my own to even pick up a pen and fill out an application for that next thing. Those mentors, those people that maybe saw something in me, a little different than I saw in myself. And so I feel really grateful about that. And I try to share that with students and, and anybody that I'm engaging with, so that they appreciate and look for those kinds of things in their lives as well. And then I think you asked for two. I'm a rambler, sorry.
Oh, doesn't make any 2, 1, 3, or whatever. And it's up to you.
The second thing I think I would say is, really, and maybe it goes back to being grateful, is really just be in awe and, take the time to look at things from a different perspective. And you don't have to go to space to have that happen. I mean, that happens when you go to space for sure. We appreciate, our planet in a totally different way, but you don't have to go to space to have that happen. And just go next door, look over the fence, talk to new people, experience things in a way that's allowing you to appreciate, that we all are in this together. We're all floating through space.
Why?
Same planet.
Why? Yeah. Well, brings up an interesting question, at least to me. Why do you think we kind of lose that just in everyday life here on Earth? I mean, does it take something as shocking as being on the International Space Station or down in the depths of the ocean to make a person, I would think it's obvious to be, or easier, I guess I should say, instead of obvious, easier to be in awe of that. How can we get that sense of awe on the planet Earth, especially if you're talking about businesses or organizations or things like that? How can we capture that, you think?
Well, I think I don't think you have to go to space for that. I really don't. I mean, I'm looking out my window right now, and there's this little, I can't remember if it's periwinkle or what the name of the flower is now. But I mean, and I'm trying, as you're asking me this question, I'm looking around me, I'm thinking, holy moly, everywhere I look, even in my own backyard, there is something that's just stunning, or that I, can be curious about or wonder about, that I think that's really what it takes, is allowing ourselves to get out of the middle of it, and that might not make sense. I use this example of, flying to space and seeing Earth that way. Yeah, I mean, I was absolutely the most separated I will ever be from this place.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt more connected to it in looking at it that way, to relating to it that way, than I do on a daily basis when I'm right down here in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we need to do more.
Yeah.
And whether as a business or an individual or a government representative, whatever it is, I think you really have to allow yourself to step back every now and then and just appreciate where you are and the blessings that you have from a totally new perspective. And you can just look out in your own backyard and have that.
Oh man. Well, you've given me a totally new perspective right now. I'm so I'm Nicole. I'm tingling.
Oh,
I am so fascinated by with speaking with you, but I have to call it to a close here. Uh, Nicole Stott, uh, fantastic artist, I'm sure. Do you plug your artwork or plug what you need to plug?
well,
Because I always get the
well, just in closing, I really, that awe I talk about, I carry that with me every day. And I really, it's back there with me every day. And I hope I'm positively using it in some way. My art is a way I want to do that. I highly recommend that everyone finds their own way to be in awe too. But for my art, I have a website, theartisticastronaut.com. Don't judge me by it; it needs to be improved. But you can get a little glimpse there. And I'm really thankful to you for engaging in this conversation. I think it puts it out there to audiences that, like I said, might not otherwise even know to think about what we're doing in space and how it's improving life here on Earth, and can really give you a much better appreciation for the spaceship Earth that we're all traveling on.
Well, Nicole, I don't know if I look at it or not, but I remember Sputnik going up. So
Yeah, I'm with you.
I've been there.
I'm with you.
I've been there since the start, you might say. In fact, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. We used to have a box, a dryer box that the next door neighbor got a new dryer, and we actually built ourselves a capsule in that dryer box for Mercury.
Yeah.
And so we used to have. I was the first to have the walkie-talkies in our neighborhood,
Oh, so cool.
and so, but it was still with wire. It not wasn't
Yeah.
wireless. Yeah, and so we put a hole in the side and had the fan there, and we would lay it down so you'd be on your back as you got, and then they would count down 5, 4, 3, 2, and start to shake the box, and then we move it up like this to where you're sitting in front. We had an actual. There was a picture of one of the astronauts over a shoulder type thing, so
Yeah.
we made as close as possible of a board with all the lights and things. It was we were crazy
And you took
kids.
yourself there. I mean,
You
really,
did,
you
yeah.
can do that. You don't have to leave the planet to do that. Yeah.
Well, Nicole, I've so much enjoyed speaking with you. I hope that your artwork is a great success, and maybe we can get back together again sometime in the future and talk about some
Yeah.
other things as well. I'd
Yeah.
appreciate that
Thank you
greatly.
very much. And thanks for the interest. I really appreciate it as well.
Okay. Well, thanks, Nicole.
Take
Take
care.
care. Bye
All
bye.
right. Talk to you. Bye.